Thank you guys so much for coming to Teams Fest today and spending some time with us. I know a lot of us get really excited about Teams, and I know I get a lot of questions about it. And so I put this session together because there's like so many apps in Office 365 that I wanted to kind of talk about how all of that integrates with Teams directly. So a little bit about me. I have been in IT for a very long time, over 20 years. I have been working with software, so I've designed it, I've developed it, I've managed it. I've spent a little over 15 years in SharePoint, specifically when Office 365 and Teams came along. Super excited because it's definitely my wheelhouse to work with productivity apps and collaboration tools and content management. And so I love that it brings it all together. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I am an adjunct professor at my local college. And I was also recently this year added into the Microsoft Regional Director Program. So I'm pretty excited about that. I get to really learn more about what's going on at Microsoft at a deeper level. If you want to reach out to me, if you want to follow me, if you want more information, my information is right there at the bottom of the screen. I answer my email as quickly as I can. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I primarily post about Microsoft stuff. Occasionally I post some travel stuff, although this year that's been not quite so easy. But I do tend to share out a lot of Microsoft stuff. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's just at Sharon Weaver. There's also a QR code there. If you just want to submit a form that you've got some questions or you'd like me to help you from a business level, just do that QR code. It'll take you straight to my website where you can fill out a contact us form. All right, so like I said, I put this session together because I know that there's so many things out there. And I'm really excited this is a Teams meeting. So if anybody has questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If you need to come off me to ask a question, that's fine. I'll do my best to get to everybody as quickly as I can. But let me show you a few things to kind of, get you going and you can see what's out there. So as you can see, and this isn't all of them, right? This is just, I popped open one of my dev tenants and said, okay, what are the things I see? And I got this. And to an ordinary user who maybe on a typical day might pop into Outlook, might open Word, might open Excel, this is a lot of different applications, and some of them are cross-functional. They do the same things. Some of them work together. And so there's always this kind of idea of, well, where do I start and which apps do I use and where do I go? And it's a very, very common problem for people to get in there and see so many apps and just get super confused. And so what I have really done with a lot of my clients is, instead of saying, well, let me talk to you about this app and that app and what this app can do, instead what I do is say, hey, tell you what, how about let's just not worry about any of this other stuff to begin with, and let's just start with Teams. Let me talk to you about what Teams is and how Teams works and how it interacts with the Office 365 stack, so that you can have one thing to focus on. I don't know how many of you guys have been around in the SharePoint days. I've been around in SharePoint for a very long time, and what's really funny is I've been speaking professionally during the bulk of that time, and I like to say, if we can not have them have to go to SharePoint, that's actually better. So I used to teach a lot of sessions on like Outlook integration, or setting up workflows so that it would go somewhere else, or only having one spot for them to get into, because even SharePoint was really overwhelming with all of the different sites. Well, it's the same thing with apps. So if we can have everybody go to one place, all of a sudden that becomes a whole lot simpler in people's minds. So we really want to point them to Teams. Let me give you a little bit of a breakdown of how Teams works with the Office 365 ecosystem. And there's a lot more to it than just this, but just to start from a really simple perspective. So the big thing that people get really confused about is, should I go to Teams or should I go to SharePoint? But what about the SharePoint permissions versus the Office 365 permissions versus the Teams permissions? And this is where people get really, really hung up. And I find that if you understand how groups work, everything gets easier. So what happens on the back end is that you have this Office 365 group that gets created. And it doesn't matter if you start from creating an Office 365 group or if you start with a team. If you create a team, a group will be created for you. If you create a group, you can join a team to a group, and then they're together and they're synced up forever. But the idea is that you really want to focus on this group concept. And whoever is in the group are the people who are going to be collaborating together. And then what happens is that group of people may need to use a calendar. They may need to have an inbox or an email inbox. They may need to have a SharePoint team site. They may need to have a planner plan to manage their tasks. They may need to have a stream location to store their videos and share out and other things. But this group is going to be the same people that are going to interact with that content over time. And so what you really want to focus on is who is in the group. And so people ask me all the time, well, how do we set up a team and who should be in which teams and how should we organize them? And that's a really hard question because, you know, for 20 years, the answer has always been, well, it depends, right? Well, it's the same thing. It kind of depends. I've seen people create groups and teams based on departments, divisions, topics, maybe projects. So you want to think about something where it's the same group of people that are working with content together. Yeah. And yes, to add more confusion, you can create a Yammer group that also has an Office group, but it does not currently connect to Teams. According to the roadmap on the new Yammer, eventually that will come, but it's not here yet. So you really want to focus on this group from a Teams perspective. And if you architect that way, if you think about it that way, what will happen is you create this group, it joins to the team, and then what you really want to do is instead of sending people off to these other locations, you really then want to tie those applications into Teams so that they really never have to leave Teams, even though they may be using SharePoint content, even though they may be accessing planner tasks, even though they may be accessing stream content. We want them to stay in Teams as much as possible. And so I know I started to put a deck together for this, and it's just easier to show you guys. So I've got a demo tenant set up, and I'm going to walk you through some examples of some things you can do in Teams where you can actually have things put together. Let me close this. All right. So I'm in Office 365. I'm in just a really normal demo tenant, and I've got all these apps, and you can see it's super confusing. And so what we really want to do is we really want to point people, they don't need to worry about all this other stuff to begin with. We really just want them to look for the Teams logo and start there. And once we go into Teams, here's the key. From an administrative perspective, we want to set this up for every team so that when our users go in, they can find everything they need to find. So you can see that I've got some different examples of ways that you could create a team, and these are just groups behind there. So maybe, for example, I don't know how many places have things like Corporate Challenge, but I know here locally it's pretty popular, and it's just an idea where local companies get together and do competitions on different sports. And so it's kind of like an event management thing that people do. So I have HR, which is just a department. I have finance, which is a department. Maybe I want a team to keep track of strategy planning and future presentations. So you can kind of think of different ways you can organize this. But I'm going to show you a few different tips about how I can just sit and stay in Teams and never have to go out. So for example, maybe in Corporate Challenge, you can see that I've got this general channel. And basically, I tell people, think of this as kind of like your common room. These are the things that everybody in your team is going to need to see. So you have your general conversation out here. And don't forget the Files tab goes directly to SharePoint. So they don't even need to know SharePoint exists, honestly. They could just go straight here to files, they could access their content. And the really neat thing is the more curious people are going to look for more. The less curious people are just going to be like, I don't ever want to leave here because this is easy and I can find what I'm looking for. The more curious people might go up here and click this open in SharePoint, and they will be able to see that there's a site that's dedicated to this. And so the key to this is that you really, really, really want to keep limited information. You don't want to build out your SharePoint site too heavily, because if they get out here and they find information that they would have not been able to find in Teams, now all of a sudden, there's going to be a mix-up of what's where. And so I typically just put some really simple information on here. So if somebody does click on that button and they kind of are curious, they want to know what's out here, maybe there's some basic news that might match up with something in Teams. There's the documents that are basically the same thing that are in Teams. There's some activity, which is what's in Teams or in Outlook. And so we don't want to overload them with information. We want to keep the information in Teams and the information in SharePoint kind of as similar as possible, so that if somebody does get curious and click on that button, that they don't come in and they're like, oh, I found out secret information that nobody else knows. So we keep that pretty simple right here and know that the files that are in here are actually stored in SharePoint. But in addition, we've got these little tabbies up here, and I was really excited when I first started using Teams, because I'm like, wait a minute, I could put everything in here. I spent years and years and years figuring out how to hack Outlook and be able to join Outlook to SharePoints and make sure you could get calendars in there, and now all of this is super easy. So all you have to do to add one of these tabbies up at the top, think of it kind of like a browser. You're just going to click this little plus button right here. And then you're going to pick the app that you want to share. So it doesn't matter. Here's kind of some of the most common Microsoft ones. And then, of course, there's a lot of stuff because Microsoft has figured out that they're not the only people on the planet. And there's all these other apps out here that you can use. Just remember, if you use one of these other apps, so like say you use Jira Cloud, you're still going to need to have a subscription and a login to be able to access that. Otherwise, you won't be able to use it in Teams. And that goes for each independent person that logs in. So if you share it with your team, but only a few people have access, they're the only ones that are going to be able to log into that. The other ones will just see the login screen and not be able to do anything with it. But you just click this little plus up here and you can add things. And so, for example, we're going to start with some simple things. Maybe for Corporate Challenge, for everybody that shows up to Corporate Challenge, I want them to know some basic information. So I've done this really simple thing where I've added an example of a Word document that's right here, and I'll have to click on it, and you can see that this Word document lives right here. And if I have the ability to edit this document, then I can edit it right here. I can open it in my Word app directly from here if I wanted to work with Word instead, for whatever reason. And Word's being slow. Or I can work with it right here in Teams. So the really neat thing about all of the Office apps is you can do them right here in Teams when they pop open, except for when I'm doing a demo and then it decides to not work. Let me refresh this. Let's see if I pull it back forward. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I can edit it right here as well. OneNote. So a lot of people like OneNote, but then once again, that's another button you have to click on. So one of the things that I've done with a lot of people is notice how these have channels, but you want to use one OneNote for the whole thing. So one of the things you can do is you can add these little sections in OneNote. And what's really cool about this is, so let's say, for example, I want to add a section specifically for bowling and cycling, because we've got both of those, right? So I want to add these sections. I can define where this OneNote opens up, and that's what's really cool. So let's go ahead and add on this page that this is bowling, just so we know where we're at. And then for cycling, let's do the same thing. And you can have as many pages in here. This is just OneNote. All it is OneNote out of the box. So we're going to put this in here and so you can see all this information. But what's really cool is let's say we want to go into bowling and we want to use that same OneNote. We can go into OneNote. And we want this corporate challenge notebook. But if you click the little arrow on the side, you can actually define where this OneNote opens up. So for the bowling section, we want it to open in the bowling section. And notice I could even start it on the bowling page. If I had multiple pages in here, I can define where that OneNote opens up for this particular tab. And so now what's really nice is if I'm in the same OneNote, but if I'm in the general section and I go to OneNote, it's going to, well, it's going to open in cycling because I haven't fixed it. It's going to open in whatever I've used most recently. But if I go to bowling and I go here, it will automatically start right there in that bowling section because that's what I defined for it to start in. And so you can use the same OneNote throughout your entire team in different channels, but simply bookmark the place in the OneNote that you would like them to go to. And then they don't even have to think about it because then when they click on it, they're automatically in the right place. They can just go ahead and start taking notes or add their information or whatever it is that they need to do. And they don't even have to care that this is OneNote. They don't even realize they're using OneNote a lot of times. They just, oh, I'm just supposed to go to the meeting notes section and start entering my notes. And then later on, you can see all of that together in one OneNote. So another thing that you can do is you can add other tabs for specific information. And one of the ones that I really like is the website one. So for example, in the cycling area, maybe everybody is really excited about the Tour de France because of course they're cyclists. And if you're a cyclist and you're not excited about the Tour de France, then I question if you're actually a cyclist. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to add some informational tabs up here that people can access as part of the team. And so the way to do that is once again, you just click on this little plus. And this is the generic website one. And I use this all the time. You can use this for anything that you can access within your organization that has a URL. And that includes SharePoint. So if maybe you want to go to a specific SharePoint page or a specific SharePoint section or a specific SharePoint list or library, and I'm not talking about lists and I'm not talking about the ones that are out of the box. I'm saying if you just want to go to somewhere in SharePoint that you want to display for this particular group, all you have to do is pick the SharePoint page that you want to go to and then use this website. So for example, let's say we're in the cycling area. I open up SharePoint and there's some pretty important information on the news section about cyclists. And so I want them to be able to see that. All I have to do is go to the page that I want them to see, copy the URL that's in the browser bar, go back to my teams, click on the tab, click on this website option, and then I'm just simply going to paste in that URL that I just found. And maybe we're going to call this our SharePoint content. And then what's going to happen is, check it out, they don't even have to go to SharePoint because this is the information that I want them to see from SharePoint based on a URL. So I can do this for a website that's outside of our organization. I can do this for a website that's in our organization. And just remember that they still have the right permissions. So there's a quick question, why don't you use the SharePoint app? You can. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can use any URL that's in your organization. It could be ServiceNow, it could be Confluence, but yeah, you absolutely could use the app if you preferred. So another neat thing that I really like is Stream. And so I use Stream for a lot of things, and people are really still kind of, I don't know about Stream, and how do I get people to go to Stream? I'm going to show you a couple of cool things that I figured out about Stream. So you can actually just pin a video in here, but I'm going to go down. I want to go down to our HR area, because if I go to our HR area, there's a lot of things that I've put in here that you can see that come in from Office 365. And so I can pin a direct video from Stream and just show the whole video. So I want people to watch this staffing meeting. So I put it in here. When I'm done, I can simply remove it. Or I could actually say something like, watch by October 7th, right? I want everybody to watch this by October 7th, right? You can rename this to anything that makes sense to you, and you can do just one video. But the really cool thing is inside of Stream, you can create channels in Stream. And then what you can do is you get this kind of YouTube effect where if you've created a channel and you link to the channel instead of the video, as you add videos into that channel, they will show up in here, and it does this little thumbnail thing where you can actually say, I want to watch this video, I want to watch this video, and it'll continue collecting them right here. To be able to do that, it's just the difference of when you click on this little plus and you go to Stream, it's going to ask you, would you rather display just the video on its own, or would you display the entire channel? And to get to that, all you have to do is go back into Stream to set this up for your users. Go up to your content. You can pick the video you want or the channel you want. So let's say I want to pick a channel, and you can see I can make any channels that I want. What's it called? Staffing. Oh, demo, that's why. So if you click on this, it'll open the channel for you. And then you can just copy the link. And when you copy that link and go back into Teams, it will show you the channel that you can select. This is just the tab name, which you can change afterwards. So you just have to open it in Stream, grab that URL, paste it in here, and then it'll say, yep, this is the right thing. And then once you put it in here, it will create this nice little setup that has the different videos pinned like that. And then once you're done with it, you can just simply get rid of it by removing it out of there. Honestly, this has been one of my favorite features because we do a lot of training videos for people, and we like roll out a lot of change management features to different clients, and they want to record like short little 2, 3, 4 minute videos that people can go to, but people get really confused. And as you can see, I was looking for stuff, and it's really hard to go into Stream and find what you're looking for if you don't know what you need. And so it's really easy to create a channel, put the things in the channel that you want, and then simply display that channel out for your users so they can find it. That way they don't even have to go to Stream if they don't want to. Now, once again, because it's here, if they get curious and they want to find out more about Stream, they can simply click on this little Microsoft Stream icon up here. It will take them directly into Stream. I can now see this channel. I can go up and look at more content, and maybe I'm interested and I want to find out what is the Stream thing all about. And so maybe somebody who didn't even know that Stream was a thing might now be interested in digging a little further and asking more questions about it. So another thing that I really like is this Power BI option. And I don't know how many of you play with this. You have to have a Power BI license. And you have to create a dashboard first. But once you've created a dashboard, what's really cool is that you can then go in, and I'll show you when you click this plus, there's a Power BI option. And all you have to do is go to the workspace or the app that you've created in Power BI. So wherever you've got it living. And maybe I have something set up there. You just simply click on it. and then it will post it directly in here, and it honors all the permissions, all the licensing. So I will warn you, if they don't have a Power BI license, they'll get a frowny face in here. If they do have a Power BI license and they have access to the team, they'll be able to see the dashboard, they'll be able to do the drill downs, they'll be able to look at it right here. Once again, I used to spend tons of time creating links and SharePoints for executives to be able to have a hidden page in SharePoint, to be able to find the links, to go to Power BI, but now they can see it right here in Teams, and it's all managed the way it should be. So I see a question. You listed Stream behind the Office group. Does it mean that you have a private Stream channel automatically linked to your Teams? Yeah, that is actually a correct answer. So what ends up happening is if you go to Stream, there is your Office 365 group is already linked to a group. So all you have to do is go into Stream and click on my content and click on groups, and you can see that these groups match up one for one with the teams and teams and groups that I have created within this particular tenant. So yes, it automatically creates a group in Stream where you can store your content, and then you can share it out with that group, which is one, I love it. I absolutely love it because the permissions are already set, doesn't even matter. You can just pop stuff in there. So yeah, so you can show the Power BI dashboards right here. Notice down at the bottom, I've got my separate tabs. So if I have different dashboards in here, all of my filters work. But this is basically corralled by your access to Teams and the group, your access to Power BI, your licensing. So unlike where we used to have to build out custom pages and custom links and get people to the right place, frankly, if they're just in Teams and you just make this, if they have the right access, they can see it, and if they don't, they don't. The only downside to that is I highly recommend, if it's a very small subset of your team or your group that has access to this, that you consider doing something like making a private channel. Because maybe everybody in the group should see this, but maybe they shouldn't. So maybe you want to have a group for HR, but then you want to have a subset dedicated to executives where you put your Power BI dashboards, in which case what I would suggest is when you click on the ... and you add a channel, just choose to go down here and change it to private. When you do that, what will happen is nobody can see this channel unless they're included in it. In addition, it creates a separate SharePoint site collection for the file storage, so it's 100% secure from the other channels. So if you need an executive space that's completely hidden from the rest of the team or the group, but it's still a subset of those people, this works really, really well to then post your Power BI dashboards in, because only the people who have access to this private channel will be able to see that dashboard. Another thing that I really like in here is Planner. So I talk a lot about Planner. I'm going to tell you right now, it's very similar to Trello. It's really designed to be a task management application. It's not designed to be a project management application. It's not designed to really do the full spectrum, but it is a fantastic basic task management application. And so if you think about things like this, where maybe I'm managing an event, or I'm managing some basic tasks for my department where I don't really want to mess with, anything too terribly crazy. I just simply want to put some tasks in here. You can then go in and you can add Planner right here. You can start from a new plan or an existing plan. So I'm going to click on Planner. I clicked on my little plus tabby. I can create a brand new plan for this group, or if I've gone into Planner and created a plan already, I can use that. And then I just pick what I want and it'll pop it in there. Question, you can't have a planner behind a private channel. I don't know about the answer for that roadmap. I talked to the planner team the other day and that was not a topic that came up, so I can't answer that because I don't know. But I will definitely, I'll look into that and see what's going on with that. I know that there's some limitations around private channels because of the way the group works with the way that it connects to things. So it's an interesting topic. But for non-private channels, for public channels, if I go back into Planner, the great thing is I can basically interact with everything in Planner right here the same way that I would in the Planner Hub. And so from an administrative perspective, I usually go to the Planner Hub to build things and set them up and everything like that. But from a user perspective, if all they're looking is I just want to see my tasks, I just want to update my tasks, or maybe I just want to take a quick look at status of what's going on, I want to take a quick look at the schedule. This is one of the biggest things is people don't like that. And one of the things I did actually submit to the Planner group when I talked to them a few weeks ago is that this calendar and Outlook don't sync directly. You can export this out, but you can't sync it. And so one of the things that I will do for people is actually put this directly into Teams, because even though it doesn't sync with Outlook, at least it's a lot easier to get to. I don't have to go out to the Planner, find my plan, then look at the calendar. I can simply go to my tab here and I can see what that schedule is right here without really having to dig too terribly deep. Or I can go to my board. I can just go in here and I can update my tasks. I can add information. I can assign things pretty quickly. So it's just a nice handy way to have Planner accessible. Once again, I'm not going to Planner for this. I'm going to Teams and I'm using it directly in Teams. And then the last one, which is one of our newest adds to the stack, is Microsoft Lists. So if you haven't played with lists yet, it's really easy. All you have to do is click your little plus tab and there should be this little rainbow icon and it just says lists on it. And when you add a list, the really neat part is it's going to give you options of what kind of list you want to use. So you can create a list, but check it out. There's all these fun templates that you can build from. And so when you're done, you can create a blank list, you can start from Excel, you can use an existing list that you've already formatted that you want to use as a template, or you can use one of these really nice out of the box templates. And when you do that, it'll build it for you. And then all you have to do is go into lists and fill it out. You can add new items just like you used to be able to in SharePoint, where you just fill out the form, or you can edit it in grid view. And then you can just go down and have this little spreadsheety view where you can fill things out. And when you're all done, just like good old-fashioned SharePoint, you can export it to Excel if you need it in Excel doc. What's really great about this is that you get all the functionality that's in a SharePoint list. So we've got our views over here like normal. We can add more views if we want to. We have our filtering options just like in SharePoint, but it's all right here in Teams and I don't even have to mess with SharePoint. So those are kind of the big wins, in my opinion, of things that people are using without having to go all the way back out to apps and find these different things. And that's not to say that there's not more. So you can embed a Power App directly in Teams. You can put some project information in Teams. You can display PowerPoints in Teams. There's all kinds of cool things you can do. You just have to kind of play with it. Yeah, forms. We use a form. So I run the user group for our local area. And if anybody wants to speak, we have a form for that. And we have a form that dumps into a SharePoint list. And then we have the SharePoint list in a tab. So that if I want to know who has signed up to speak, I can just simply go to my user group team. I click on the tab. It tells me who's submitted. And it's really easy. I don't have to go look for things. I don't have to go dig into things. It's all just right there. So I left a few minutes. I very purposefully just kind of tried to cover some of the basics and leave a few minutes to answer questions. So what questions do you guys have, or what would you maybe like to see that I haven't shown before we run out of time? I know it's getting later in the evenings for some of you guys, and you're probably trying to eat dinner at the same time as this. Let's see a note. In my opinion, team-centric approach will reward companies in the future. I completely agree. I've had exactly the same experience where over time, the people that I have really pushed into teams and are really adopting teams are actually really adopting Office 365 as a whole. They do better with SharePoint. I find that they use things more. I find that they integrate better. I find that they collaborate better. I also find that governance is better because if you can only see the teams that you have access to, it's a lot easier than trying to manage permissions to just know that if I go to the right place, I'll see the things I'm supposed to see, and that's how it is. It's way easier than managing it. Calendar on the left. Good question. So inside of Teams, yes, we have this calendar icon. Right now, this will display a copy of your personal Outlook calendar. So if I go to Outlook and I look at my calendar, I can see there's nothing on it. So let's say I want to add something. So I now have this meeting on my calendar. After a slight refresh, you can see that this is a direct reflection of what's on my Outlook calendar. I know it's been on the roadmap for a while for multi-calendaring, but as of now, what this displays is my personal calendar, what's on my calendar. And honestly, I use this almost every day. When I join meetings, I actually click on this calendar icon, and what I love is that there's the join button. So if you guys don't know about that, let me pop one of these on here. Just so that you can see what it looks like. Let me make this a Teams meeting. Nope, I want to do it. All right. Oh, wait, hang on. I got to push it back a little bit because it has to be there. See this join button? We have to push it back so that it's current so that it'll show it to us. So if the meeting is during a current time period, you notice that this little join button pops up. And what's really cool is if you click on this, it's automatically going to pull Teams up, and it's automatically going to join directly to that meeting. Which I use this all day long. And it does this in Outlook too, but because I'm in Teams so much, I actually really like this feature. Question, let's see, I had a delegate accessing session this morning. She couldn't see the hands up feature on the menu. She couldn't share her screen. Yeah, so, and this is the question before that, what are the advantages of accessing Teams and internet browser versus through the desktop? I will tell you, I find in general, accessing Teams through the client application, it's a lot easier. Things just tend to work. And here's the big reason why. The client application has more control over the devices that are actually on your computer. So the way that the software works is it's actually joined to your actual computer. Whereas the browser, you have to remember, the browser, it depends on which browser you're using. And browsers do not have as much control over your device settings. So one of the things that you'll notice is if I'm in the Teams client, I'm going to have more device settings, but inside of the browser, if I go to settings, I don't have that same device settings option, and that's because the browser just doesn't have that access to the devices that your client application has. I would say overall day to day, other than meetings and calendar stuff, I don't really notice a difference in the browser-based versus the client app for all of the other functionality. It is the device settings and the meeting stuff that's a little bit better in the client application. And I will also tell you, I use the mobile app all the time. So if I'm out running around and somebody, chats or asks a question, the mobile app is just fantastic, where it'll just pop up on my phone and I feel like I'm chatting with people. It's really become integrated as part of my daily life to be able to pop onto meetings with that, or just respond to a quick conversation, a quick chat. So yeah, Karen says, I'm looking forward to the new breakout rooms. We are too. Super excited about breakout rooms coming. Everybody watch your tenants. They are coming soon, but we're super excited. And the minute they're out, we'll probably start playing with them and demoing them. Next question, is there a way to add a group chat as a tab in a channel? Not specifically from teams that I'm aware of. You would have to do something like create a discussion list in SharePoint, and then you could share that, or a discussion board, which is a classic list. And if you did that and then you shared it into Teams, I've done that before. I think the only group chat you get is that post. And this technically, so for anybody that, fun trivia, this information is actually stored in Exchange, which is why it's kind of confusing. So the chat history for the conversation history is all stored in Exchange. So you only get this one, and there's really nowhere to add it because that's the only one there is, and that's the only one that exists. So I have used a discussion board in SharePoint though, and then shared that in Teams, and it worked out okay. The other option is you can use Yammer. So if you wanted to actually have chat inside of here, I think another option is, even though it's a separate group and it can be a little confusing, you can actually share Yammer directly in here. I don't think I have it on this one, but you can have a Yammer tab, which I have used in Teams simply as a discussion board. Let's question. Oh, I agree. Mobile app and cross devices are working like a charm. Yeah, and honestly, I'm in a ton of tenants for different clients, and then I speak at things like this, and so they add me to their tenant, and I'm part of the Microsoft community tenant. And I find that switching back and forth tenant to tenant is probably the easiest on my phone. So the mobile app, I think, is probably out of all of them the most versatile in terms of switching back and forth. Whereas, like I said, I think I use the client app mostly for calendar meetings. I'll use the web app all the time for logging into clients and going in different tenants. And then the mobile app just for day-to-day stuff, especially if I'm going to be in multiple tenants at once and I'm going to need to kind of ping back and forth. That's not typically a problem of the average everyday user, though. That's more of a consultant issue. Let's see, comment. For me, group chats are working fine with Teams. The fact you always lose your focus when you receive a chat message is not a good experience. I agree. Once again, I find that that's better I find it better on my mobile device. So as long as you're logged into all the right places, I find that if I have alerts set on my phone, that the chats pop up just like a text and it doesn't seem to matter. Whereas the group chats on the app and on the web are a little bit more finicky. I think we're getting to the end of our time. I know that Michael has posted out the link for surveys. Please take a moment to just click on the link and fill out the survey for me. I'll stick around for a couple of more minutes now and answer questions, but I think we're coming to the end of it. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of your Teams Fest sessions.